Hi guys, well today we're going to be having a look at the AORUS RTX 2080 Extreme Edition. Now Gigabyte has released a number of RTX cards under their standard series, just like this one here, which is a gaming OC, and it comes with the usual WindForce cooler. And while these cards were pretty much available straight away at launch, we've actually held off looking at anything from Gigabyte until the AORUS models came in. And that was a matter of days ago, and we did that because the AORUS Extremes are much more interesting to take a look at. The most obvious change between this season's Extreme and the previous GTX 10 series is the new lighting system, which AORUS are pushing out as a fundamental feature. The idea being that our Extreme breaks away from traditional lighting and it brings in some impressive options which, if you do have the card rotated inside your case, it is going to look quite spectacular. As is always the case with the Extreme cards, this RTX 2080 version has a modification to both the GPU and memory by way of a factory overclock. Most of Nvidia's partners that we've looked at so far have avoided overclocking the memory, and so it's great to see both attributes there have been enhanced. Now, stock for the new RTX 20 series has been pretty much hit and miss in many countries, but this should be available to buy right now. It retails for $1,500 in Australia, £828 in the UK, and $879 if you're in the States. And so this one here is among the more expensive 2080s out there, but we do get a huge 4-year warranty with this one. But even so, it is going to need to pull out all of the stops to make a big impact. So guys, stick with us as we take a look at this card in plenty of detail, analysing it, looking at all aspects, and then showing the performance at the end. Okay, and here is Extreme. This card is huge in size and pretty bulky too. We are of course dealing with Gigabyte's top-end 2080 here, so it isn't any surprise that our card is substantial in size. The plastic shroud is the first thing that you're going to notice, and that is largely responsible for adding all of that chunk to the card. From a top view, the design is quite open and exposed, and by overlapping those fans it means that AORUS can shorten the overall length of Extreme. You can see that it isn't actually that long. Now, if you are thinking about getting this card, then having it rotated inside the computer case is an absolute must. AORUS has integrated LED tubing into a single blade on each of those fans. The end result is that you're going to be able to make use of some impressive lighting effects. If lighting is your thing, then you'll know straight away that this type of technique is unheard of. And as well as the fans, the side also benefits from LED integration, and all of this lighting here can be controlled using the RGB Fusion software. So we've talked about the size of this Extreme card, and here are the actual dimensions. So for the length, Extreme is 290mm. For the width, you're looking at 120mm. And then the height 58mm. And so it goes without saying this card is large, and you will need adequate space inside your case in order to install it. Now, a lot of the RTX partners have factory overclocked their cards, but have only modified the GPU clock. With Extreme, both the GPU and memory clocks are factory overclocked compared to the reference settings. And so what you get is a base clock set at 1515, and that boosts up to 1890 MHz. And the memory clock operates at 1768 MHz. And so that represents around 10% increase for the GPU and just 1% for the memory compared to the 2080 reference. That GPU overclock is one of the biggest for this RTX model, and it should help lift up that frame rate in game. Other stats include 8GB of GDDR6, and this card is also PCI Express 3.0 compliant. It is DirectX 12.1 ready and supports OpenGL 4.6 and Vulkan 1.1. Extreme will occupy 3 spaces on your board and 2 on your case, so it is advisable to check if you've got enough room. And this card is named Extreme for more than one reason. On this back panel here, we've got a huge selection of ports, which include triple HDMI 2.0, triple DisplayPort 1.4s, and USB Type-C for Virtual Link. Now typically we'd get 3 DisplayPort and 1 HDMI, or twin DisplayPort and HDMI. And so plenty of options there for multi-screen use or VR. Moving on to the power requirements, we need a 650 watt PSU, and you'll also need those twin 8-pin connectors for the power delivery. We also get those LED indicators there to tell us if a PCI cable isn't properly connected to the card. Those LEDs blink if there is unstable voltage from the PSU. Along the edge of the card we have some additional LEDs which notify whether the fans are spinning or not, and the Aorus logo illuminates as well when the card has power. This lighting here can be tweaked in the RGB Fusion software and it offers up to 16.8 million colours. Since this is an RTX 20 series graphics card, we're now dealing with NVLink instead of SLI, and this port here is found in its usual location near the input-output panel. NVLink bridges can be purchased from Nvidia's site for $90. Now, turning the card over, on the reverse there is a large metal backplate which protects the PCB from getting scratched or from flexing, and that plate has a nice big Aorus logo which is LED ready. On the previous generation of XTREME graphics cards, we had a copper plate over the back of the GPU, but in this RTX line of XTREME, Aorus has done away with this feature, perhaps alluding to it being ineffective. Okay, so we've detached the cooler from the PCB and this is what we're presented with. So essentially what we have is a triple arrangement of 100mm double ball bearing fans, and you can see the middle fan there, it sits lower, allowing the other fans to overlap it, and this causes the card to take up less space in the overall dimensions. That middle fan also spins in the opposite direction, counterclockwise, which is said to optimize the airflow. And as can be expected, these fans here will stop spinning if the system is in an idle state and below a specific load. And later on we'll be reporting back on how effective this cooler is. And those fans sit on top of this enormous twin heatsink design using composite heat pipes. And those heat sinks have direct contact with the MOSFETs, the VRAM and the GPU, with the intention to transfer away that heat from the PCB and from the components. With that cooler off the card, we can also check out the PCB, which actually has a special aerospace grade coating. And so XTREME uses a 12+2 phase design, which is digital, and we also get ultra durable certified chokes and caps for longer life. So at the heart of our 2080 is the NVIDIA TU104, based on the new Turing architecture and the 12nm process. And you can see just how big that die size is. And oddly enough, those marks on that GPU don't seem to lift off even after repeated attempts. And so as we said before, the GPU features a factory overclock of 10% over the stock settings, and in that full review on Vortez.net we'll be overclocking this even further, so be sure to check that out. So it's now time to test out XTREME, and we're going to be jumping into a number of games to reveal the performance. And for each of these games we're going to be going with 1440p and 4K for that resolution. We'll be cranking that detail right up to Ultra. To capture our footage we'll be using the AVerMedia 4K Ultra, which allows us to independently capture gameplay without the GPU or the system taking a hit. In the full review over on Vortez.net we'll be looking at other games and also comparing this card to others, so be sure to check that out for comparison. And while we check out these games, we're also going to be having GPUZ running in the background to pick up on the max GPU temperature. So let's begin. Okay, and if we just jump out of our game, we can see our max GPU temperature. And there we go. And that figure there isn't that much different to what you get on the Founders, which is a little bit disappointing. So that is what you guys can expect from the Aorus RTX 2080 Extreme. Now this card here currently sits at the top of the 2080 leaderboard as one of the fastest options out there. And you'd really expect nothing less from the Aorus Extreme. It is the gold standard in terms of what Aorus brings to the table. You guys may have actually seen the GTX 1080 Ti Extreme that I reviewed last year. It is a cracking card, so much so that I actually use it in my own personal rig on a daily basis. And so this model here, it is factory overclocked, and while the memory only benefits from that mere 1% increase, the GPU clock has that healthy 10% modification, and that really does help in terms of tapping into that extra performance in game. And it's also going to help if you're a content creator and you find yourself there in Photoshop or video editors quite frequently. Another thing to mention is with all Aorus Extreme cards, Aorus cherry pick for the best performance, and so outside of that factory overclock, we should be able to push the limits even further in a manual overclock. So be sure to check out the full review to see how far we could push this card. Now, if you are an RGB enthusiast, then you're definitely going to be pleased with this card. It has to offer some of the best lighting that we've seen, and the lighting itself has been integrated in a very creative way, and that in turn brings those stunning visual effects. This card also offers a whopping 7 video outs, triple HDMI, triple DisplayPort, and that USB-C. And so, plenty of flexibility in that area if you're looking for multi-screen or VR support. Performance from this RTX 2080 Extreme is, as we've already seen, exceptionally good. I don't think there's any doubt in the capabilities there of the RTX 20 series. The elephant in the room is got to be that pricing though, isn't it? It's understandably a hot topic at the moment, and it remains to be seen what real-time ray tracing has to offer on a per-game basis, and how effective DLSS will truly be. We actually spent some time with NVIDIA at PAX just recently, and we had that private session of the upcoming Metro Exodus, where we sat down, we played the game, and we saw that real-time ray tracing in action, and I have to say it is quite special. So it will be interesting to see how each game developer actually utilises this technology in their games. And so that concludes our look today at this graphics card. For more benchmarks, more analysis, and if we could squeeze even more performance out of this with our manual overclock, check out that full review. The link is on the screen and in the description. Let me know what you guys think of this card in the comments box below. Take care, and I will see you guys in the next one.